A new era is upon us. Pulse has taken the world by storm as the leading Web3 social media. Beyond current features like casting, tipping, inscription trading, and earning, it's now elevating to the next level, on-chain.
Soil, a fully regulated, seamless link between traditional finance and the digital crypto world, offering secure returns fully backed by tangible, real-world assets.
The Credifi testnet is live, so head on over to credifi.finance to see how you can effortlessly experiment with autonomous earning, NFT corporate bonds, Credi and X-Credi utilities, and Module X.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday, making it a few minutes past UTC. Big shout out to everybody joining the stream live today, as well as everybody who's going to be watching this on catch up. So big shout out to Nick. See Raphael coming in as well. We've got people starting to pour through the gates, which is awesome and what we want to see. So obviously it's our altcoin Wednesday. So if you guys have got your altcoin picks, please do let me know. And we'll take a look at them on the screen. Now we can see we've got Bitcoin up here. So just while we wait for everybody to kind of funnel in, we will just take a very quick look at that. Good morning, or good afternoon, actually, Erica. Great to see you here as always. So let's take a look at Bitcoin then. So I've got kind of what I think is a really clean and clear range here. All right. So I think if we take a look at where we are at the moment, we can see the range high, range low, and this is on a daily, right? So this is what I would used to refer to as like an impulse range. Now it's always a little bit subjective how somebody draws a range. For the kind of very best people in that space, I would always recommend going to people like Trader SZ, Trader Dank, who's unbelievable, EXO as well. You know, these guys just kind of live and breathe trading ranges. But for me, there's a couple of different ways to do. You take high time frame candles, you break them down, or you kind of look. One of the other things is these impulse ranges, right? So you wait for this impulse, yeah, and then you look for that retrace, then you look for that kind of structure shift on the way up, and then you know you've got a confirmed high and low. Chances are after an impulse move, especially like this, that things will just, you know, range at least for a little while. Obviously, time frame specific, you break down through the different time frames, and obviously you're going to get, you know, smaller and different ranges. What I would say is that price spends most of its time within a range. So that's what we want to consider. Now, obviously, you can see after a nice big run like this, we've had this consolidation. What happened? We swept the range low here. So deviation, what happened? Price went up to the midline. Deviation again, underside retest, price goes up to the midline. Now, we're not going to get into this too complex, but if we draw this across here and we split this into a range whereby the midline is then split by midlines here, so you're making multiple ranges through this as well, you can really see how price kind of interacts with these different levels. All right, so let me just turn my session breaks off for a second, make that a little bit clearer for you guys. There we go, right? And now you really kind of get to get a feel for it, right? You know, you see how price kind of battles with these levels, tries to get above it, kind of holds the level. Then when it kind of takes out this high here, it gives us that confirmation that price is looking to go a bit higher. Same way with this one, we break down here. As soon as we break that low from the initial break, price pulls back and then we ultimately sell off. So price is kind of in and around here. Now, the reason that I'm kind of going on about this, and I know a lot of you won't really kind of see this from me too often, let me just get rid of this for a moment, is because of this, right? We were down at range low here. Now, my good friend Trader Dank tells a brilliant story about a range and a guy called Johnny and the pizza, right? So I recommend if you get the opportunity to ever find out that story, it is an absolute beauty. But basically the principles of it are, is you're looking at this as strength and weakness, right? When price comes down into here, getting down below this would be a sign of weakness. Getting back above it is a sign of strength, especially when you see these wicks lower and price comes and closes back in here. It's telling you that there's absorption. It's telling you that buyers are stepping in here. and price then ultimately looks for the next liquidity higher up, which, is the midline here, but is also this swing high here as well. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for these key liquidity pools. And then you kind of overlay that with where your range is. So take this, for example, this pump above, definitely showing strength here. But what actually leads to the pump higher, if we look at it, is this, right? We set this bullish gap, price comes up, right? We leave this kind of swing high up here, sets the swing high, price then comes down, finds support in this area, ultimately searches for the next liquidity, which it generates by creating this internal high, also this external high here. And, if we were to just take a Fibonacci again and just draw in our 50% here, all right, and okay, this is a premium discount range, but you kind of get the same idea. But look at the 50% line here. If we line these areas up, then we get really good confluence. However, what I'm really interested in at the moment is this, right? And yeah, of course, guys, sorry, just taking a little look over at the chat. Yeah, Pendle, no problem. Pepe as well. Awesome. All right, guys, do let us know if you've got any more you'd like us to take a look at. Make a note of those. Right, perfect. So where are we? Well, at the moment, anybody that maybe pays attention to the Bitcoin reports, over at the Bird Nest, we do them every single day. My amazing analyst team over there, or our amazing analyst team over there, all take it in turns to give their thoughts on the market on a daily basis. Now, I have the pleasure of doing it on a Sunday, which I actually really love. It allows me to kind of get, an idea of what's ready for the week ahead. It's a process I would go through anyway. So looking at this here, we can see quite clearly prices come up. What was the analysis, right? So the analysis was, well, quite simply bullish, because we've had this nice reaction here, right? So bullish here because we've had the reaction, price is making its way up. However, for me, I can't get bullish, in terms of looking for this thing, because we still need to regain some structure here, first of all. Lower low, lower high, yeah? Now, technically, the way that I look at it, just a higher for me is what you consider clear and obvious, and it's also what you consider, technical. From a technical standpoint, this is a low. Why is that a low? Because it's flanked by two higher lows, right? Really simple. Now, why is this a high? Because it's flanked by two lower highs. Yeah, so that triangle formation that you see there is what makes a high and a low for me. So we went from a lower low to a lower high, right? But then we went from a higher low to a higher high. Now, what invalidates this, and I said about this earlier, is coming back down below this, all right? Now, if we were talking as well in terms of clear and obvious, you'd be looking at something more like this, right? So you'd want to see something come down into this region, set this here, right, as a higher low, and then we'd look for a break of this, which would actually get us closed above these fair value gaps as well, right? And that's why that's important. That's why I said, look, we're expecting short positions from these gaps. That's what I will always favor here until we close above. But the good thing was that we created this bullish gap here, right, when this candle closed on Monday. So the expectation, right, for yesterday was that price was going to draw down into this area, find support, and then move higher. What would invalidate this if this closes below here, right? If this closes below here, this will become an inversion gap. Okay, that means that we're expecting this to act as resistance. I would then be looking for anything that would kind of pull back towards this area here, and then we have a target there and a target here. So that's why in the post we put out, it was really, really simple. If we're going to kind of break down, we're back down below this level here. Again, look, if this was the reaction the bulls wanted to see and price is back within the range, this thing should be getting drawn higher, right? That's just, I don't make the rules here, but look, if we're getting acceptance in here, if there's strength, if there's buyers there, if, institutions, commercial entities, hedge funds, everyone else, these big players think that this is a bid here, this thing will go up, right? If they don't, it's going to go back down. Now, I've been harping on about this for a long time, I know, to a lot of abuse, but I think 56,697 here on Femex will be slightly different depending on what exchange you're with, is a key level for me, because this is a key high time frame liquidity. Now, we don't have to come down and take that. I would be happy to long this if we got the strength that we see in there, but we don't have it at the moment. The best case for the bulls, and sorry, just to finish up on that, there's also 58,420 I'm really interested in, which is this swing low. Also an abnormally long wick, yeah? So whenever you see that, we got a really good reaction here. Why? This swing low that sat within a fair value gap, all right? Great liquidity pulls. So price pumped, At the moment, it looks like it's not going to sustain that. In terms of microstructure, we have already kind of broken down here because we've set the low, higher, higher, low, higher, higher. But now we're back below this low again, right? Which is showing weakness. Now, we do need to remember, however, so, it's all well and good saying, okay, look at the bearish case. We have to look at both sides, right? You never want to get married to a bias. So what's happened? We've swept this swing low, yeah? Markets are very, very tricky. They like to catch people offside. It generates liquidity, right? It allows major players to get involved. My big question is what stops arresting below here, yeah? But there could be some, right? We had this big move down here. Price reclaimed the range here, ranged here for a while. People might have thought, all right, holding this level here, maybe when we climbed back into the range here, this is a good place for stop losses, and this is where we're going to pump to, all right? So for me, if price retreats in here, holding this gap, remember, it's not an inversion gap. An inversion gap is when we take a bullish gap like this, close below it, it then becomes bearish, as in we expect it to be resistance. It works the same for a bullish gap. That's why we're looking for price to close above these, in which case we'll turn them purple and they should then act as support. That's what, the bullish scenario wants. However, price has swept liquidity here. If it can climb back within this, we need to turn this back to grey anyway. I'm going to make it green just so that it stands out from the others. But if we climb back in here, then I'd be thinking, okay, well, what are we doing? Well, now we're holding a bullish gap here. This could have easily been a liquidity sweep, looking to get people offside in the market before we have a recovery. Now, we need to also remember that, yesterday we had Chairman Powell spoke, okay, head of the Federal Reserve in America. The markets didn't particularly like to see that, crypto markets anyway. We saw a huge corrective move down. Let me just drop this onto a 4-hour for you to give you some context, right? So, don't have to pop the session breaks on, but you can see here that this move at 1 a.m. we had the big sell-off in Asia. The day started, in the truth, we had about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, price started to sell off here. Now, we didn't have Powell take the mic until 2:30 my time, right? So it's an hour and a half after this sell-off. But if we look into the candles here, okay, and we look to yesterday, and we say, okay, well, where did this really start to happen? Well, look, price was actually going up. We rebalanced this hourly FVG. Our conditions were really, really simple yesterday. Close above this. We long into these highs from Asia. Reject here. And bearing in mind, we're above New York opening price here, which is a catalyst for shorts. Then I think we sell off. And, unfortunately for the crypto market, for Bitcoin, we did sell off. Powell took the mic at 2:30, which was exactly here. And boom. Right, price absolutely went to Hades. So what are we concerned about today? We are concerned about the fact that we've got FOMC minutes later. Okay, so that's always a big concern. Again, you're talking about Powell and his, group of, I don't really want to say the kind of words that I want to say on the thing, but typically these kind of people aren't the best at doing what they do. And, they like to kind of shock the markets into the position that they want them in. Countries are typically poorly run. And then when that happens, the squeeze comes on to the little people like all of us, right? And that's very much what has been happening recently. Inflation numbers are looking good. Interest rates should be coming down, but the Fed hold or assume to hold. We're going to find out a little bit more about their thoughts tonight. Where Europe obviously cut. So Europe's looking a bit more prosperous at the moment. While the markets are in turmoil, it's going to be very, very difficult for cryptocurrencies to get a bid here as they are, a beta risk asset. Yakuza Kana, my friend, great to see you. And Zenka as well. And Zanchzok, probably absolutely murdered that, mate. I do apologise. It has been a long time, Yakuza Kana. I hope you've been well, mate. Simon, saw you sneaking over there as well. And Duncan. Yeah, absolutely. Let me make a note of a couple of these guys. I'll stop waffling on about this in a minute, and then we'll dive in. Okay, so what else have we got? IO, okay. Our dear friend and team member, your NLP coach, Jimmy, has been looking at that. Rose. This is good. Plenty to crack on with then, guys. I better pull my finger out, as we say here. Ethereum as well. Yeah, good question, Zenk. Consolidation phase right now. Absolutely. Typically, summer isn't an amazing time for the markets anyway. Sell in May and go away, people say, don't they? And then you want to come back kind of in the last quarter of the year when we look for price to come back. That's a very, very interesting seasonality study. I'd recommend following Crypto Burb for that. And obviously the Hirsch brothers, or the Hirsch family, and the almanac that they write, which is absolutely incredible, looking at seasonality studies. But however, for me, I'm looking at this from a price action perspective. And what this is telling me is if we don't recover this here, I just think the next liquidity is here. All right, so 58,420 on the downside. However, remember our high time frame context, which is price could still recover this. Price recovers this and closes back within this box, our bullish fair value gap. Then I think price, is then ready to make a move higher. Okay, so let's get some nice clean charts up, shall we? And I believe it was Knit, Ellie, isn't it, that wanted us to take a look at Pendle. So let's see what we've got going down over here, shall we? So where did we look at it last time, Knit? Was it on the perpetual contract? Here we go. So perfect. Let's clear this up a little bit. You can see here again, we get that close below price hold, but on a recovery of this, just like a range, right? What do you get? You look at these levels very quickly before I get rid of this, right? So you have the deviation price as a recovery here. The midline's kind of sat around about there. Rejected the midline, comes back down. We get secondary deviation. What happens? Price gets up, deviates the midline, comes back below, closes above, and then deviates the highs, closes back within, midline, range low. Now this here, unfortunately, looks like a proper breakdown, right? A lot of volume in this. So let's never want to get rid of these things, right? Always a good idea to just save them up as past data. And you can go back, break them down, save them into categories and look to see, where you were right, where you were wrong. Whack, hello, mate. The Dude, great name, awesome film, world-class actor. Can you Ondo? Yeah, sure. Oh, Cuba will be happy with that. Oh, actually, as well, our dear friend QBS did ask us for ENS, I think. Okay, so we've got plenty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to be going on with there. And then, all right, mate, we will take a look at TON as well. We're going to probably hold it there, guys, or we're going to be on here all day. So let's start with Pendle, right? Where are we? What's going on? And hello to you as well, mate. Great to see you here. Miss you? God, I've murdered that, haven't I? Brilliant to have you here anyway, mate. Apologies for the British pronunciation. So what's price just done? Remember, great way to start is saying to yourself, okay, what's the most recent thing that price has done in terms of liquidity? We've swept this low. In sweeping this low, right, we need to wait daily, right? But what we're saying to ourselves here is, okay, next low is here. We've got a slither of a fair value gap here. We close through this fair value gap here. Ultimately, we got some weakness and we've seen it on the breakdown, and then we're going down to this. So downside target is 3.8222, which is what we want to look out for. We don't have a gap here on the daily at the moment, all right? Price kind of hasn't come into that area. So let's look onto our 4 hour. We need the daily to close in order to get that. So I think this could be interesting here. Now, it's very skinny, but if we close below this up close candle, we confirm this as an order block, right, or a change in state of delivery, in which case we would kind of look at this and say, okay, then, price is almost certainly gravitating down towards the 3.8222 level. However, we did create this swing high here on the 4 hour. So we want to be aware of how price is going to react to that as well. So we want to kind of factor that in too. At the moment, the nearest gap that we've got is here, and then there's one here as well. I think I would probably, especially if we had a decent recovery here at this swing low. So if we get ourselves back above this in terms of the body close, maybe we're going to kind of draw up to here. Price very rarely likes kind of going down in a straight line, right? So we would look to this kind of 50% retracement level. Might not do that, right? Price obviously can do whatever it wants. But typically when you look at price action, if you look at any of these kind of pumps or drops, right, just use this closest one here as an example. We get the drop. What happens? Everyone's super bearish. Price retraces up here. What does it do? Retraces to this gap. Price is typically looking for liquidity below lows and above highs, and to rebalance gaps. All right, fair value gaps. So that's the kind of theory we've got here. However, I think that is a really, really big magnet on price here. We've also had this kind of swing low here that's within this gap, so that can be a good liquidity pool. So watching this now, probably going to go to say like a 15-minute or something and say, if you want to see some strength here, and I have to say Pendle isn't the cleanest in terms of that. But look, we've got Asia's range here. We've swept Asia's range tonight. Yeah, this looks like an AMD or a power of 3 to me here. All right, meaning that we've had consolidation. Yeah, price is kind of consolidating, Could this be manipulation, meaning that the market's now been thrown the wrong way? In which case, if it is, then we typically after that get expansion. So if that's the kind of theory that we're playing on here, what do we want to see? Well, we can just take all of this off, right? Probably didn't want to get rid of that line on the thing actually saying that, but get rid of those, all right? And then this, and say to ourselves, all right, if this is the deviation, what do we want to see? Well, quite simply, we've got a nice bullish 15-minute gap here. If price is going to continue higher, this holds. We look for our long setups in here. You see that low swept, the high recovered, right? And then price go up. So you want to see the high that's responsible for sweeping the low closed above you. Ideally, you want to see a lot of impulse in that move. And then we can start looking at, you know, these highs, etc., which are all kind of resting liquidity targets. However, we close below here, then we target this, and then ultimately we've got the level down here to look at. All right, so that's certainly how I would be looking at Pendle. So then we want to take a look at Pepe. Let's have a look at Pepe here. What have we got going on with our old friend here? Okay, I think that's weekly. Yep, so look, weekly bullish gap, closed below here. What do we expect? This to act as resistance. That's why we've got the prior week's low marked up over here. We didn't quite run that. We came and took some daily targets and then moved lower. You're very welcome, Nick. So while we're below this, I think this is still, you know, looking pretty weak here. So we're going to leave that on there. Again, you know, we've kind of, let's just get rid of some of these lower time frame marks. Hang on. We had equal highs here, great liquidity target. Price came and took those out. You know, came back into this area though and actually respected this massively. Look, we got the wicks out, but ultimately the body's held this. So I think what we want to do now is say, okay, well, what's price done again here on the daily? Well, we had a bullish gap here. What happened? Price closed below it here. What did it then do? This was our first sign of weakness. Remember that then becomes an inversion. When we look at an inversion, what are we looking to hold after the inversion? We're looking for our bearish gaps, right? So we inverted that, react to this bearish gap, we're now selling off, okay? So while we're doing this, we're looking for downside liquidity targets. This has just been swept, so we now want to see what the reaction is here. We now have the next viable target down here at 0. Lots of zeros, 99700, all right? So we want to see what happens. I think if price is coming down to this low, I'll be very surprised if it didn't take this, you know, weekly low from 2 weeks prior. And also price is kind of holding this bullish gap here. So we can see nice reaction, nice reaction, nice reaction. Ultimately, price took liquidity above here. And the weakness in the market, I think, is another factor, right? It doesn't matter what we do. If you're looking at Bitcoin and Bitcoin tanking, very hard for any of these alts to kind of stand up then, which is one of the kind of issues, obviously, with crypto. Very good in good times, but when it's not, they're all very heavily aligned, right? So that's what we want to be aware of. So while we're below this, I think we move lower, but we want a bit more context than that, especially if you're like me and you're looking to trade these intraday. These candles do look very heavy here, but what we've got is we've got this bearish gap over here, right? We've taken external liquidity here below this low. We saw this kind of small recovery here, then price is kind of continuing to sell off. In an ideal world, we would see price kind of pull back to this region here before making a move lower. It obviously doesn't have to do that. If we're then looking for that in terms of executions we could take on here, I'm just kind of looking at this level here and following back because we've seen some really big downside wicks. So maybe responding to this low. Yep, see where price's current line is, the dotted line. That's a really key swing low from back there. Why is it key? Because it's got a huge downside wick on it, right? Look at this, large downside wick. Doesn't quite draw into this fair value gap, which would give it even more precedent, but we did sweep a low, and then this was the lowest wick from this move here that led to that huge move up. So if the buyers were there before, we're asking ourselves the question, all right, are they there again? So let me just get rid of this quickly. So if we want to break it down more granular than that, then we need to look at what price is respecting. And on the 15-minute, price is still respecting the bearish gaps. Yes, we saw a big recovery here, but not one enough to get back above this. So I think while we still remain below this, immediate target intraday would be this low here, which is a, you know, I think that's 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 0.40 at 10,3,450. And then obviously the key level down here, which is at 5 zeros, 99,700. Obviously, if we close above this, violating this, then I would really look for price to push up. I think we've got a lot of kind of flat highs here or relative equal highs, which will provide a good liquidity pool. But at the moment, this thing looks like it's kind of nailed on to take out that 10.3450 level. So that is Pepe. So let's run back to our daily here, and now we are on to IO. I think this is pretty, oh no, okay, so we've got a perp contract here. Let's take a look at this. Okay, this is interesting. Let's just see. I just want to make sure there's not. Yeah, the spot contract really kind of ripped pretty high. Okay, so look at the spot contract. We're going to do this on Binance here, all right, because of, the data set. Now, there's not a candle before this, right, but there is obviously this huge void. Price is just kind of grinding its way down into there on a daily scale. Liquidity targets to the lows. We're not really looking at many there. So let's take a look at this perp contract again and see if we can get now. I mean, obviously price is just running off. Binance has a little bit more data here. So just working this out for you guys, probably more likely the majority of you are trading these on spot contracts rather than perps. If you don't know about perps trading, then please don't trade perps. Stick to spot, yeah, and don't invest more than you're willing to throw away like you would in a casino. You're very welcome, Erica. Oh, Imran, my friend, I didn't see you slide in there as well, mate. Mike Mads as well. I will try for you, my friend. If we've got enough time, we will take a look at ore. I told you up only, so I bought 7.85. That's it. Yeah, don't listen to those kind of people. What about the rumors US and Germany are selling? Yeah, I know, powerful rumors. There's so much FUD comes into this market, been part of this maybe sort of 7 or 8 years now across different markets. And there's, news is definitely to be, definitely want to pay attention to news, but you want to kind of overlay your news or your fundamentals with technicals. That's what I would recommend anyway, because news is probably the biggest mechanism of major powers to get us to do what they want us to do, right? And that's probably very rarely the right or the best thing for us. So look at this level, right? This is something I love to say. When you get these abnormal wicks, you get these areas, prices driven into here, cleared out some liquidity, taken out the liquidity below the prior day. Then as prices come up to here, you're saying, okay, well, look, if buyers really stepped in here, because look at that level, yeah? Same way really with this one. It's not as clean, but look at how they work as such good. You see a decent drop, recovery, get that wick. Look, support, closes below, resistance, sells off where to the next liquidity. Now we're looking at this level and we're saying, okay, well, look, price came in, failed to find support, but look how beautiful this closed below an underside retest was, and then that sell off. So I think that's quite key. That shows a fair bit of weakness in there as well, right? There's not a ton else to write home about here on a daily scale. So we're going to drop this down to the 4 hour. And let's have a look where we are here. This really kind of shows you then, you see you get your deviation here, price sells down, can't get below this gap. Price just jumps its head up above, gets everyone super bullish here, takes out liquidity from these equal highs, and then price just sells off aggressively. What do we want to see here? Well, the first part of the recovery we want to see is for this 4 hour fair value gap here to be closed above. Close above this, and my immediate target is going to be these equal highs here. They're set at 3.030. I really like that. Close above here, intraday, look for those kind of patterns and then rip it into those. Obviously, we want to see price above this, yeah, but we need to remember that we also want to see that above there on a daily scale because that's the level that we're looking at. So once again, you see these kind of long downside wicks here. Look how we've kind of done a very similar thing here. Set that, price is consolidated, big close below, price is now coming in for that retest. So we need to factor that in because whilst we're delivering from bearish arrays, as we did here, what happened? Price broke down, took out this low. What did it do? Retrace to this gap. Held this gap. Price has broken down again now. Notice there's no other gaps here. Well, now we form this gap. This gap's now going to tell us we either come in here and close and reject further, or we close above it, flip it to support, and then start to move higher. That's why for me on a 4 hour, that's my line in the sand on IO. I think we continue to reject here, then ultimately there's still, unfortunately, quite a long way that this thing can go down, right? But, you know, if we do catch a bid here, I think the first thing we want to see is a 4 hour close back above this. And we've got about 30 minutes to achieve that with the current candle. So I hope that was helpful for IO. Now let's take a look at Rose. Move back to our daily chart. Guys, if there is a particular exchange that you want to see this on as well, please do let me know. All right, and I'll tailor it to that exchange. So let's have a look here, shall we? Again, I'll kind of favour the I will favour the spot charts and that for you guys, especially with these kind of assets. Now, Rose, here we go. Okay, so we've got a nice amount of data here, so I'm going to take it one step further and drop ourselves out to the weekly. Now, this gap was kind of key here, right? Really held. I mean, look, we got a little smidge of a close above it here. Yeah, but I think we want to be cautious here. Whenever we get that kind of violation as well, you want to see how price reacts. Typically, if you get that close above, then you want to be trading it to the next high, which is this, because this is a weekly high, lots of liquidity. You see that reaction, you hold this. I'd be very, very cautious here. We had a very, very similar thing on, I can't remember if it was Bitcoin or Ethereum recently. We had price just sneak below this bullish gap, and then it kind of started to work its way back in. I said, it's just not enough for me. You know, typically when you see these gaps violated, we'll look at some examples on the lower time frames, right? When you see them violated, you know, you normally see so with some momentum, right? And then when you get that momentum, price can really take off. So anyway, we're back below this. So that really didn't kind of work out for us. We also kind of then violated this very small bullish gap that's underneath. For me, this is the area at the moment that's capping the market. And what I would say here is I can't really see what liquidity price has taken here on a weekly scale, apart from the prior week's low. If we're looking at this just purely technically, let me bring that in because on the lower time frames, that will be huge, right? Then we've got this swing low here down at 0.08034, all right? The next kind of thing that we really want to look at here, and not to be kind of nearly negative, but we're delivering now from this bearish gap, and prior week's low becomes our initial target in this case. But also, you know, we'll kind of break this down now onto the lower time frames, right? So looking at this on the daily, yeah, okay. So daily had a decent reaction here. Again, below kind of little bit of an insignificant low here. So could be, you know, could be a number of reasons it happened. We don't want to question it. At the end of the day, it could be a news catalyst, whatever, or maybe there were just a lot of people. Maybe people had waited for the structure to recover, seen some strength here and placed their stops below here. Either way, this was a big recovery. Oh, no, it did sweep this. Sorry, what am I talking about? I was going to say, I thought it only swept that low. But no, I was going to say, I'm very surprised it hadn't taken out this low, but we can see that it just did here. I'm going to draw that in because for me, that's significant, right? That low here, look again, abnormally low wick. Buyers were there before, buyers stepped in again. Now we have this. We regained some kind of bullish momentum here. And look, reacting here from bullish gaps, which is a really good sign. However, we've since come up and tagged into this big bearish gap, right? Which I'm not going to draw it in because look, big bearish gap here aligned with our weekly gaps as well, kind of telling us that this area is pretty strong resistance, all right? We've come up, swept some liquidity here from this swing high. Yeah, which is local after taking out this swing high, which is an intermediate term high, meaning again, it's one of those highs or lows that's within a fair value gap. Excuse me. So look, I think at the moment it's looking a little bit dicey. What would I do if I wanted to have this as an actionable plan on the daily? I'd want to see a close below here, daily close below here, and then my targets are quite simply 0.08824, immediate swing low on the daily, followed by the 0.08284 and 0.08034, all right? Big liquidity cluster here, drawing price down, but I would want to see that close below. If we didn't get that, something I quite like for a bullish move here is we've got this intermediate term low on a bullish scale sitting here, again, low within a fair value gap. Be great for a resurgence if we get something like this. Price comes down here, doesn't close below and doesn't violate it, gets people super bearish. Everyone thinks this is breaking down, then recovers it back into here. And that's the springboard that we need to move higher. All right, great liquidity pool. This can easily freak people out. Candle can end up all the way down here, but can come back and close within it. If that's the case, what that's just ended up doing is clearing up loads of leverage and creating loads of liquidity to flip to the upside. So that's what I'd be looking at there. Let's just pop this on a 4 hour. Duncan, you're very welcome, mate, as are you, Simon. Thank you for the suggestions. Yeah, again, look, it's just... Powell's comments yesterday obviously had a really negative effect on the market here. All right, if we just flick out onto here as well, sorry, and we go across, we look at equity markets a little bit flat today as well, and the dollar's down too. Sign that the market's a little bit uncertain. We're trading into a lot of data today as well, which I'll cover in a minute. You know, we've got FOMC minutes, which is the really big thing later on tonight. For me, that's 7 p.m. So that's like 6.5 hours from now. So we're going to get a shot at the New York AM trading session, which starts in about an hour. However, we need to realize that starting actually just before that, we've got non-farm, ADP, sorry, non-farm employment changes. We've got employment claims today as well. And I think services, ISM services. So, those things will drop throughout the day, creating volatility that injects into the market. The hope is that the move from the market is down to induce shorts, and that the news kind of provides that catalyst to go long. Be very careful trading major news days. Often on the launch of the news, which is, you can find these things out using like Baby Picks or Forex Factory, for example. Just look at the red folder news calendars. And what you'll notice is normally you get a huge pump one way, which takes out all the over-leveraged positions. Then the market pumps the other way and takes out the positions on the other side, settles momentarily, and then sits itself into a groove. So one of the areas that we specialize with at TBN, we've got a great crew with us in our trade club section where we sit and live trade 3 days a week together, intraday trading, typically on the NASDAQ, but sometimes on crypto, obviously S&P 500, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those moves, price to settle, you look for that data, you look for the liquidity pools, and then you look for price to attack them. So do be aware of that today anyway, before I digress too much. However, looking at this on the 4 hour doesn't really tell us tons more, right? But I think we want to be wary of where these levels are. We've got a swing low coming up at 0.09578. I would look at that. I would then, there's another one below it there, but I would say if that gets run, I'd imagine that will probably get run too below it. That's a more key level for us at 0.09414 because it also aligns with our daily, okay? So while we're in here, while this holds, I'd be very, very cautious with shorts. If we see momentum through this level, however, then we've got our downside targets as previously discussed. So what is next? We have Flux. So let's ping back to our daily. Let's have a look with our old friends. Fenex, what have we got here? Again, loads of data. Okay, first thing I don't like on a weekly scale is that we've closed below this. Right, so we've inverted that gap now, showing weakness. Is it the most convincing close? Not really, but they're big-bodied candles, right? I would consider this, I'd be very, very cautious longing this here. For example, we might find some setups on the lower time frames, but we always want to be aware of that. We've inverted this now. This should be resistance, all right? We came down and we took these beautiful equal lows, right? And again, look at these wicks, right? Almost perfectly equal. You've got that one in there as well that's very close. Look at the close through it, right? Again, look at this abnormal wick. Look at the close above it. The wicks and the candles can tell you so much about price, right? So another example, abnormal wick here, right? Look at this. And this whole level makes sense, even with this close above it. What happened? Rejection, no close above, price goes lower. Rejection, price goes up. We're just seeking that liquidity. It doesn't matter if it consolidates or not. These are big moves intraday and even sometimes, for swing trades, right? Then you get that big pop above and price kind of runs away. So, when you see these levels, when you see these key or like abnormal wicks and stuff like that, often they do play a part later on as well, right? Sellers very aggressive. They're led to this big sell-off. What happens when price gets here? Strong close above it. Price comes down to confirm this area of support, rips above. Support. These are weekly candles this level was holding for. You get that big move below it. All of a sudden, price really showing weakness. So just to give you a little context there, guys, not, as we would say here, trying to teach you how to suck eggs, which is a hilarious British statement. Kind of just means not trying to tell you what to do, just kind of telling you what I see. This looks like a consolidation here, though, right? The last significant things that have happened is we got a liquidity sweep here. We got a liquidity sweep here, right? So actually draw those across, and that's kind of what's capping the market there. Price comes down. You've almost created a kind of range here. In fact, if we go on to say like a 4 hour, we've probably got a nice impulse range. Remember, like I said, price comes down, sets a low. You wait for price to come and set a higher, yeah? Then you wait for that to be confirmed by price either breaking structures the downside or it sets this high, break structures the upside, then you get your range. If we now draw that in, give ourselves a midline. Let's get rid of this for a minute so that we just got it a little bit clearer. All right. Actually, I hate the look of that 2 strength. We'll just zoom in a little bit more. Right, so again, if we're then going to split these into our ranges as well, we've got that, and then we've got this. All right, so quite simply, and I'll just draw a line across here so the midline stands out a bit better. Okay, really, really simple. Range high, range low. Deviation price gets in, what happens? Runs to range high, mid-range, shows strength above it. Yeah, go to the mid of that range, wicks up, deviation closes below. What happens? Price closes below here, underside retest, goes down to the mid-range. Finds support in the mid-range, shows strength, right? Strength by popping above here, you trade it into the mid, finds support at the mid, reaction here, goes up, doesn't quite get to range higher, right? Doesn't quite get there. Breaks down, closes below, mid-range, down to the middle of the lower range. And now we're kind of almost trapped in here within another smaller range, yeah? So price come down, reaction here, reaction there. So now we're watching the midline, which is coming up here, all right? So it's actually the midline of the lower range, yeah? So we've split these into two. So here we're saying to ourselves, all right, what liquidity have we got here? Well, we've got this low, yeah, which is almost kind of equal with that low there. So a reaction down here is what we're looking for. You're looking for price to get below it and then get above it quite quickly, right? In which case you then on the lower time frames look for that break, look for that base to be built, and then you trade it up here first of all, hold here, yeah, and then we trade it up to here, hold up here, create that base, watch for that sweep, and then we trade it up to the range higher, all right? Really, really simple range trading principles. Obviously, if we don't respect that, if price comes down and you want to see that kind of impulse move down, you want to see a strong close as well, and then comes back to this area and struggling to get above it, then I think we're kind of tied on for the range low, which is down here. And if we're looking at this here, we're down about 0.5866. All right, guys, that is what I would be looking for there on Flux. Now we want to take a look at our old friend ETH. So we've got a lot of nibbles on the chart here. Let's take a look, see what we've been going on about. Well, I know exactly what we've been going on about, this beautiful big fair value gap. How these candles were showing it the ultimate respect here, right? So really, really simply, price came up, took liquidity above this high. What do we do? Create this humongous bullish gap here. This Fibonacci is from the low to the high of this move, this weekly impulse move higher, right? So again, when we're looking for these corrective moves, let's just use this impulse move as an example. You take the low to the higher, and what are we looking for? We look for price to come down below the 50%, which is this line here, and engage with one of our gaps, right? Or a low. So boom, what happened? Price came down back into the lower 50%, into this gap, and we forged that recovery. Again, just to give you guys some context of why I'm doing this. So if we look at this here, we've had this impulse leg. We really wanted to see this 50% hold here, yeah? So again, probably shouldn't have got rid of that, but you know, for this point here, as price was holding, will we see something similar to what happened here? We got that close below, and then price had that recovery. For me, while we kind of, you know, this level, the 50%, held price here, held the body perfectly here, held this body perfectly here, and this was a great looking candle. Price ripped down here, took out liquidity below the prior week's low, huge recovery here, yeah, and now we're back above this level, and then we're, you know, holding this here. We wanted to see resurgence. This at the moment is looking very, very weak. We're going to break this down on here. Taha Khan, my friend, great to see you on here, my brother. How are you doing? Awesome to see you, mate. You're very welcome, Simon. Zenka, awesome. So let's take a look here on the daily. Now, I just leave this one on here, just a reminder that we're in this big bullish array at the moment, all right? But I'm just going to hide it for a second, just so that we've got a clean chart. Now, we're down below this level here. Look, these were the targets that we had on the lower time frames, right? We were looking for liquidity to be flushed below here, which will be on the 4 hour. And then below here. So we're going to leave that on there for a second so I can show you why we were thinking this. Very, very simply, look at the daily fair value gap, this bearish gap. You can go back, look through our previous reports. I was very, very clear on this, as I was, I believe, on Monday, that we need to see a close above this. Close above this, again, broken record time, but we invert it, meaning it's an area that should offer strong resistance. If we close above it, we look to it to offer support, and then we're looking for higher, right? We didn't get that. That's why very, 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 very unpopularly, whenever you make a bearish kind of comment or anything in this space, you normally get resistance from it. But people need to realize that you can't be bullish all the time. I know a lot of people are heavily invested in these projects. I am as well in certain ones. And I mean, emotionally and financially, etc. But you have to trade what you see on the charts, right? Just use these things to your advantage. Don't try and enforce your will on the market, because the market will chew it up, spit it out and throw it back in your face. Always does. So we're here, daily scale. What have we got? Well, if we're looking for hopium, then that's the level we want to look at here. We want to see 3,323.71 here on Femex. This is the perpetual contract, right? So futures. We want to see this recovered, right? We've taken out a low here on the daily. Nothing insignificant about a daily low. We took out that daily low as well today as well. Look, and we're just kind of ripping through these lows. So that's the main thing there on the daily. So 4 hours really going to provide our context. We can see here these two providing our previous downside targets. These have both been hit now. All right. And again, look, price had a little bit of a resurgence here, ultimately then left, relative equal lows between this low, and now he's kind of purging them out aggressively. If we're looking to add other liquidity levels here as well, we want to look on the 4 hour. We've got this level sat here at 3,240.52. Now, I am cautious while we're here, though, because like I said, this is a key liquidity pool, this low, which has only just been run. It's a low with inside a fair value gap, in this case, a bullish fair value gap, right? So now on a 4 hour scale, I've all of a sudden got a set of parameters or a set of instructions I can follow. Hold the close below this, then we chase down to 3,240, Because if we close below this, what happens? We invert this, right? Let me just change that one, because that's not, in fact, inverted. That one remains bearish. So we close below this, and then I think we kind of chase down liquidity here. Price then refuels here and maybe makes a move a little bit higher. At the moment, I'm cautious here. However, we need to remember, 12 minutes. If price closes back within here, I tell you exactly what I would look to do. If price now recovers, closes within here on the 4 hour, then this 15-minute bearish gap is my line in the sand. If we close above this, then I love the look of the liquidity resting above these here, and ultimately higher up, all right? But that condition is only there if this closes back within here, wicks all the way up, in which case this remains bullish. Remember, it's not inverted until we close below it, and we have 11 minutes until that close. All right, guys? So hopefully that was helpful. Let's ETH out of the way. What have we got? 10 minutes to rip through a few more. Ondo. Let's have a look. My boy QBS loves Ondo as well. Was really, really early with this and pulled off an exceptional trade for our members. I remember being incredibly jealous. I didn't get in on it, actually. Full exposure. Full disclosure. Well, I suppose exposure's accurate as well, but still like this, actually, Ondo. I know that might sound a bit weird with the current market conditions. Obviously, crypto, if it's if Bitcoin's trashed, then crypto typically follows. But look, nice big expansion, price corrects down. Once again, look, what are we looking for? Nothing heroic. We just want that 50%. Price is holding this area lovely, So it's come back down. It looks at our risk to reward perspective. And then while we're holding this, again, and I said this last few weeks, this area holds. We got this nice bullish engulfing candle here. I was feeling bullish into these highs, right? I have to be honest with you. I think market conditions have turned a little bit more on news, but we don't know. That could be, a number of catalysts, which is why we always have to be ready to trade these markets both ways. All right. Now on the daily, again, I'm really kind of attracted to all of this untapped liquidity, right? That's looking really, really nice. But in the same vein, we also have some pretty tempting untapped liquidity to the lows. So we can't be picky here, right? We just need a plan. And the plan says, while this holds on a weekly scale, we want to be bullish, but we need some overlay here as well. Look, we're setting lower highs, but higher lows. Price is basically compressing, into this, which is like the worst drawn triangle you've ever seen, right? So when we get that, price is often compressing and then looking to make a move. Whilst we continue to hold this bullish gap, however, which is, still today, looks very weak, doesn't it? But like we said, careful, because price can suction back up into that and hold it bullish. But I would be looking down here in truth. I think this looks a little bit weak at the moment. We do need to be cautious though, but 1.09055 on a daily scale. All right, but I don't think I'd really be favoring the daily from here. I think what I would be looking for is saying to myself, all right, well, if price is going to have that resurgence, where's that resurgence happening? In this gap, right? Our H4 or 4 hourly gap, we've swept liquidity there. We now want to see a resurgence. We want to see a recovery here. And for price to really come back, and again, remember, on the daily, we want to see price close back in here. So price still has like 11 hours to do that, or less than that, actually, about 10. So I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit more granular, right? Because I do think that if we are going to make that recovery, a little bit tricky. Would have liked to have seen that low swept, right? This is obviously the 4 hour that we want to see kind of come back above. So I would be looking at this and saying, okay, well, bearish gap here. If this is the resurgence, look, I like to see liquidity induced, meaning I like to see a sweep before a recovery. It tells me that people have been hurt here, not physically, obviously, but it tells me that people that have gone long here have had their stops taken out, meaning it generates ready-made liquidity for people to grab their bids. I like, again, untapped high, untapped high, untapped high. We've swept Asia's low as well. Price looks like it wants to come and kind of reclaim this area, and we've got a long time to do it. So close above this, we invert this, and then I think price makes a move on those highs. Interestingly enough as well, this small dotted line here is New York's midnight open. We're below that, meaning that we favour longs, and we've also swept Asia's low. So plenty on there for consideration on Ondo. Thanks for the Flux VC support. My own thoughts. Awesome, Zeng. That is awesome, my friend. Okay, so let's go back to a daily. What have we got left? ENS for my boy QBS. Probably busy doing lots of awesome things around the nest at the moment, but I will take a look at it for him anyway, because that's just the kind of guy that I am. You can remind him of that one as well for me, Erica. And Unit, you remind him too. You're very welcome on Ondo, mate. Very welcome. Okay, so daily on ENS here, I think a couple of things. Hopium style is order block coming in here for a retest by the looks of it. Yeah, these are the down close candles. Price reacting from a bullish gap here, holding that bullish gap, price pushes up. On a daily scale, what people won't want to see that are bullish, this asset will not want to see this close below. At the moment, that's bullish. I think a lot of crypto is going to look similar, but look, we've had this pump, price could still recover this here, right? So again, we're going to kind of tip our hat to the lower time frames here and see what this has to offer. Once again, very similar, right? So we're now looking to say, okay, well, on a 4 hour scale, we've got 6 minutes 35. We want to see this bullish gap hold. If this bullish gap holds, yeah, then price has had a good retracement here. Let's have a look. I think we're a fair bit below the golden pocket at the moment, but we might be able to recover it. Yeah, below the golden pocket in 705. We see a decent recovery here. And this all of a sudden becomes a lot of confluence here for price to have a reversal. I do think it's going to be a tricky day today, guys. I have to say we've got a lot of news data about to launch from as soon as kind of 20 minutes from now, all the way through to FOMC minutes. So do be cautious. But purely on that perspective, these are our key areas that we want to see hold. Once again, price coming down into this area here. Not really much even on a 15-minute here, right? I think I would probably combine these two gaps here and say, okay, well, if that's currently resistance, again, I'd like to see price sweeps and lows here, but close above this. I think there's some inefficiencies here. There's some nice swing highs here as well that we could look to take on, but I think my eyes are purely on the higher time frames here and watching for this level here to hold that order block on a daily scale is set at 27.1375. Okay, that's ENS. We're going to finish on Tom and Or. So TON. What have we got here? Take a look at our friends over at Bybit. By the way, guys, if you want to trade with any of these awesome exchanges, obviously depends where you are in the world and what legally applies to you. I trade with Fenex here in the UK. You can find descriptions to how you can join that and get loads of goodies and bonuses and come and join our unique trading community over there. We've got Binance, we've got Bybit as well. You know, we work with some absolutely amazing companies. We're very blessed in that respect. Taking us a long time to build that reputation to do so, but brilliant deals, offers. You can get free memberships thrown in with some of them as well. And you can also just join us all the way from free. So if you are interested, all that information's down in the description. But at the moment, this is actually quite a good one. I like this because it gives me an opportunity to show you the effectiveness of these inversion gaps, right, on the daily. So again, look, price just couldn't get above it here. Dangerous to long it here. Why? Price comes and takes that liquidity below the lows here. Yeah, daily low. Then price comes up again, wiped out again. As soon as we get that close above, yeah, just that close above, just showing us enough strength, right? Then this area turns to support, right? And actually, when you look at it, if we look at it from an equilibrium perspective here, look how beautifully that equilibrium of that gap holds here. Yeah, closes above, support, 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 boom, and away. Now, actually, I'd be looking at this one here on TON for this, right? And I'll tell you as for why, is because I just think that from a liquidity perspective, that makes a lot of sense, right? So we'll leave that on there. However, we can see again, look, stepping in yesterday's news into today, we've kind of had that sell-off. So let's, look for this level to hold here. Another area that we could look to hold here is this order block, this down close candle before price closed above it. This can be a good area to keep an eye on as well. Looking at this on the 4 hour, what do we want to see? Well, quite simply, actually, in the next 3 minutes or so, we just want to see price sneak back within this. I'd love to, if price closes back within here, then I think we move to a 15-minute and we look for those kind of, those setups where we get that kind of structure shift, and then we can be nimble, dive into the lower time frames and look for long setups, or, depending on what your system is, of course. However, close below this, and I'm saying, okay, well, the next key liquidity pool is here. All right, and that's at 7.5819. You then can start to see, okay, well, that's actually almost relative equal lows there, with that one at 7.5692 below it. I think that would, I think that's the draw on liquidity if we close below this. So actually what we want to see is price just sneak its way back into here. And once again, if we allow for the upper of the gaps here, this one, bearing in mind, I'm going to extend it down to this one anyway. That's not how you would draw a fair value gap, but we basically have two, the gap between that, and then this and this. So I'm always favoring the upper here. So you've got the context for that, but this whole area could reject price. All we want to see is we just want to see price on the 4 hour scale close back within here. Then if on the 15-minute you get a close above this, then all of these targets start to come into play. And also we're below New York midnight price here, again, favoring long setups. All right. So that's my thought there. Look how the bodies are, hugely respecting that at the moment. So we want to see that pump. Let's see price climb its way back in, looking relatively positive at the moment. Just try and look at equity markets, and DXY still down, equity still, or equity, so indices still pretty flat, which is natural heading into the news. So that's where I would be on TON, and then right, what was it our friend asked for on OR? Let's take a look at the chat very quickly, see if I can find this one back here. Oh, AUD USD as well for our friend Imran. Of course, we'll finish up on that, mate. So, okay, so mining Solana. So, I'm thinking maybe it's one of these. Apologies, because I'm not that. Do let me know if this is not the correct contract for you, my friend. And who was it? Mike Mads, if you're still on here, mate, let me know if this is incorrect. Okay, actually, you're going to drop this one out onto a weekly. Weekly's holding this big bullish gap here. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bullish, but it doesn't mean it's crazy bearish yet either. Do think if we get the weekly close below this level here, which looks it's 0.004565, then we start to make a move onto these lows down here. Okay, we can see lots of upside potential here for this. That nice rounded bottom that led to this pump. Market's kind of cooled back off again. But, these are the areas in truth, if this is aligned with your strategy, that buying is what you want to be doing, but aligned with the right technicals, right? For me anyway, I don't just like to kind of blind bid these things. Now, actually on a daily scale, price is really kind of balanced here. I think the key thing here is we've taken out these equal lows, and look how perfect they are, right? So equal lows here on a daily, key liquidity pool. If we're going to see a reaction, I would expect it here. Yeah, definitely not equal highs, I'll tell you that. Equal lows. So now we've swept that, draw that across onto here. We've not really got much more data here on a daily. I'd want to see a close above these consecutive down close candles here for price to close above it to see some resurgence. What you'll notice is yeah, that would be a change in state of delivery. What you'll notice is your up close candles on a way down typically defend price. Body of that defends that, body of that defends that. So you don't want to see price really closing below this white one here, because when we close below this one, more downside, close below this one, more downside, close below this one, more downside, and so on. The opposite is true for bullish cases. Close above these down close candles here, more upside, right? Close above this down close candle, more upside. So setting order blocks. So we're going to look to the 4 hour. Can never forget you, Imran, my friend. So we've swept out these lows here. We haven't quite created this gap here yet at the moment. Again, same principle. Look what happened here. Consecutive up close candles. Up close candle, close below, price sells off to the next liquidity. It's changing state of delivery or, setting an order block. Even again, broken record, you can see here, consecutive down close candles. This candle closes above, boop, price runs up where to take out the next liquidity, closes below the up close candles. Anyway, you get the point, right? This actually really isn't too clear for me. We've got the equal lows resting here, 4 hour ones resting a little bit lower. We've swept those now. This is pure liquidity gains for me. I don't do this too often, but I drop down here onto the 1 hour to find a bit more context. And actually, I like this. So line in the sand right here, price closes above this. I think we rip this higher. While we remain below this, I think we're probably in a little bit of trouble looking at some more downside. All right, guys. So hopefully that was helpful. Now we're going to finish up on Aussie dollar, US dollar. Okay, actually, I did one on my ticker list. Where is it? Right, so Aussie dollar, US dollar, where are we at? On a daily scale, we've got a real cluster of highs set up here. Really like the look of those. We kind of shifted structure now back up to the upside. Nothing really to write home about other than the fact we've changed state of delivery again. Set this order block here, this down close candle, closed above here. So we're looking for this area to be retested and lead to more upside. On a daily scale, let's just clean this up. On a daily scale, price is very, very balanced through here, but we again have got, look at these, not quite equal highs actually. That's been swept, so for me that's not of much interest. But we've got liquidity targets both sides here, guys, actually. So really going to refer down to this 4 hour and then look at the structure. Again, very, very balanced through here on the 4 hour, right? But what I will say is if we're going to hold this, then our upside targets are here at 0.66888. We would need this candle to close. What have we got? 57 minutes. If that candle does close and leaves that high intact, then that will also be relevant at 0.66843. Again, so balanced, this price action, right? So we're going to take a look here on the hourly and say, okay, we haven't even got, our gaps and bits and pieces here on the hourly. What we did was, we had this big bearish gap here. And again, the power of inversions, right? Big bearish gap here, keeping the market resistance, resistance, resistance. Price does what? Closes above, retest this level. Again, you take your fib out and you can look at that at the equilibrium. We got this very small close below it here, but ultimately quickly back above and price really started to rip. So I'm going to go even lower on this one. So sorry, for anybody looking at this on a higher time frame, it's a little bit unclear at the moment. We've set at the end of the day a higher high and a higher low. So I would expect price to attack these highs, right? I think that's all there really is to say on that time frame there. I want to kind of just break it down to the 15-minute here to see if we've got anything more granular. And I think this is our kind of line in the sand here. We've got this bearish gap. This is capping the market here. Look, resistance, resistance. You swept some liquidity below that low here. Now you want to see a close above this, in which case I think then, we've got this immediate high here, and then all the way up to this level. Like we said, if there's a high time frame expectation that we're coming up to here, great. Something else I'd very much be looking for here is we've got Asia's low down here. Now, where we've swept Asia's high, if we did come down here and sweep Asia's low as well and climb back in here, I would very much be looking for long setups from around here as well. All right, guys, well, look, slightly longer show today. I think we did just creep over an hour, but I think we got a lot in. Loads of people active today, which was awesome to see. Nick, hopefully we'll catch you soon on the live trading show, my friend. Big shout out to everybody that was on the show today. Absolutely tons of you. So I won't do a name call out. I know I miss a load of people, but you all know who you are. Thank you very much for your time, guys. And do remember, do go check out the bits and pieces in the description. Come and join a growing, great, environment, education focused. Doesn't matter what the market conditions are. It's all about improving yourself, becoming a better trader, and ultimately off the back of that, pursuing your own financial freedom. All right, guys.